There is something inherently unsettling about call and response children's programming when you really get down to it. The idea of an entity hearing a child's voice through a screen and responding as if it understands, speaking as if it knows someone is there, listening and learning. It conjures images of what might happen if that entity took advantage of its position over the viewers. Today, we are talking about Gooby and Friends, an analog horror series that began just a few months ago, first uploading in December of 2023. Though we are in the humble beginnings of Gooby, I predict the channel will continue to grow, especially now that film theory has joined the ranks of theorists covering this strange little show that is not made for kids. Speaking of the film theorists, just minutes after their theory went up, Gooby uploaded their 8th installment. So I would like to give a brief overview of what we know so far and then dive into the 8th episode. For a more in-depth overview, I recommend Puffo Bob's video, and for more theorizing about those first 7 episodes, I would certainly give Film Theory's video a watch. I will be mentioning some of Lee's points in this video, so consider this your spoiler warning. And the full Gooby playlist will be linked in the description below. If you're new here, welcome! I'm nervous. And if you're returning, I'm happy you've chosen to join me again for another video. If you've yet to subscribe, consider doing so and become a member of the nervous system. I talk about internet horror content with an emphasis on FNAF. But without further ado, let's get theorizing. Now, again, this will be a brief overview. This series contains a lot of puzzles, ciphers, and single-frame images that come together to tell the overarching story. On the surface, Gooby appears to be a children's program teaching basic lessons like colors, numbers, shapes, etc. However, as we keep watching, the show seems to deteriorate, and Gooby begins to glitch out and say things that sound a bit off. Not only this, but images, coded messages, and links to other hidden YouTube videos flash across the screen. From the information given, we come to understand that children are disappearing, and the disappearances are happening in close proximity to episode upload dates. For instance, Michaela Akins is reported missing December 7th, 2023, the same day the first episode was uploaded to YouTube. We are told she was watching TV with her sister when her sister went looking for her grandmother's credit card. Upon returning, Michaela was gone. And in the first video, Gooby asks the viewer to locate a credit card and read out the numbers to him. We can assume each subsequent video is similar in nature, showing us images of who was captured in the last video. As more episodes are released, the number of characters we see grows, seemingly birthed from the mouth of Gooby himself. It's a bit disturbing, though luckily fairly obscured by the strange visuals. These extra characters are not formally introduced by Gooby, so we do not know any of their names. The other types of images that flash on screen are those from what appear to be the early days of television and a man in a suit. This man seems to be standing on a television set in front of a live studio audience full of children. From the coloration of the images, as well as the clothing choices and simplistic set, it's safe to say this image is from somewhere between the 50s and 70s. Occasionally, we are shown messages that seem to be from the point of view of this character in the mask. He speaks presumably of Gooby as a separate entity that seems to be taking hold of his thoughts. We are led to believe that perhaps this entity was created and given sentience through his mind. So what we know so far is that Gooby is an entity that seems to have been around a long time, and he has a knack for kidnapping children who are watching his television program. And that about gets us up to our most recent video. March 24th, 2024 is the latest installment of Gooby as of recording this video. Gooby starts to tell us what we'll be learning about when the screen goes black and we see a conversation between two children, their voices distorted. The video then cuts back and forth between the episode and the black screen. Gooby has amassed a large cast of characters we can assume all showed up the same way our first green friend did. This conversation is actually one lore hunters would have already uncovered via a tap code in an earlier upload. This tap code gives us the added information that the two children talking are Sophia and Michaela. Two of the children we know have gone missing since the beginning of this series. As their conversation wraps up, he then seems to address the two children directly, seeing as they respond to him. He seems to scold them by asking if they've learned to only speak when spoken to. We see Gooby has gone from describing traditional foods to human body parts. From there, he talks about loving food and how important it is for all living things, even things like him. At this point, the video shifts to what I would describe as an attempt at hypnosis. There are many cuts between the episode, flashing images, and a static-filled TV screen. After a while, the TV abruptly turns off, and the last 30 seconds of the video are a black screen accompanied by what I believe to be a distorted voice that needs to be isolated better to be understood. I can tell there is continuous heavy breathing, which we've heard before in this series. I'm not proficient enough in audio cleanup to go further with it, but the clue is there for you to potentially solve. While I may not have all the answers, there are things I think this newest video puts into perspective for us. Firstly, I believe this video can tell us where the children are going when they disappear, and secondly, I believe this video illuminates a lot about the origins of Gooby. One question for us to answer is how exactly are the children being taken and where do they go? Whatever the case, it does seem apparent that the children find themselves inside the show. As Lee points out in his film theory, the show is called GÜBY and Friends. So how do I believe this is happening? Throughout the series, we see many close-up images of Gooby's face with his mouth wide open, looking directly at us. This, paired with Gooby's admission that he sees humans as animals and compares them to pigs, as well as his later assertions about how important food is for all living things, including him, I believe we are to understand that Gooby is consuming the children. At the very least, we know he is eating their teeth due to the decoded message from an earlier episode that repeats the phrase, "How I feast upon the teeth." In this latest episode, we see him call back to this by saying, "And these are your teeth," while rattling off examples of food. Teeth are a common visual and topic of conversation in GÜBY and Friends, which Lee from film theory connects to dream symbolism. While Lee speaks about teeth as a symbol of power, I would like to add that they are also a symbol of confidence and control. When having dreams about losing teeth, it is often attributed to the idea of feeling out of control, unsure of oneself, and yes, powerless. It would make sense for Gooby to target teeth, as he is an entity described as appearing in dreams, at least the dreams of his presumed creator. Furthermore, children would make excellent targets as they have two full sets of teeth for Gooby to prey upon. The callouts of Gooby appearing in our mystery man's dreams, as well as the hypnotic nature of this latest video, give me the impression that Gooby takes hold of the target's mind as a way to lure them to the television. They are predisposed to trust him as the host of the program, and the nature of the show encourages them to interact with and listen to Gooby. So in full, I believe Gooby is putting the children in a trance-like state, having them come close to the TV. Once they are close enough, his head emerges and he eats the child, keeping them in his stomach while they go through some kind of metamorphosis, then emerge from Gooby as these friends we see in later episodes. So that's where I believe the children are and how they got there. But perhaps you already deduced that. Maybe you're more concerned with exactly how all of this came to be. Well, episode 8 has some clues for us that build upon things we've learned from other videos. Not only that, but it lets us know that this is not the first time this has happened. Right as the television turns off, just for a moment, a message appears that says, "We are not the first," and it gives us a date, June 25th, 1951. Two major things we already understand about Gooby are that his original form seemed to be a man in a mask who performed for children on a TV show filmed in front of a live studio audience, and that Gooby as an entity has some thematic connection to the short story I Have No Mouth But I Must Scream, as a line from that book appears multiple times throughout the series. Briefly, the story is about a group of people trapped inside a machine that has gained sentience and rebuilds itself into the perfect eternal torture chamber for the humans it blames for its creation. This connection strengthens the argument for the children going on to live inside the stomach of Gooby as they transform. But it doesn't quite explain his inception. For that, we look to our date, June 25th, 1951, the day of the first color television broadcast. It was a variety show on CBS, and in the universe of our analog horror series, could have been Gooby's debut. But we can go back even further. This image was the one that made me certain I had to make this video. When first researching it, I found it was called El Ajedrecista, or the chess player, one of the first autonomous machines capable of playing chess created in Madrid by Leonardo Torres Quevedo in 1912. But neither Madrid nor the year 1912 are of significance to our story. So why this image? Well, this particular image of the chess player was taken in January of 1951 at the Paris Cybernetic Conference, whose theme that year was calculating machines and human thought. It was a meeting of the minds as important neuro and computer scientists from around the world came together just a handful of years after the end of World War II to discuss the similarities between computer programming and the human mind. Torres's son is shown demonstrating the machine to Norbert Wiener, an American computer scientist, mathematician, and philosopher, not to mention a child prodigy who John Green is fairly fond of.
Hank, I don't want to get all fangirly on you, but I am a huge Norbert Wiener fan! I really like Norbert Wiener.
Wiener and this conference are of particular significance here. The conference focused on viewing the computer as a model of and for the human mind, and was undoubtedly influential to those who attended. Wiener was likely no exception. In fact, this excerpt from an article on worldinformation.org on the beginnings of artificial intelligence research tells us exactly why. A discovery that influenced much of early development of AI was made by Norbert Wiener. He was one of the first to theorize that all intelligent behavior was the result of feedback mechanisms that could possibly be simulated by machines. While Lee from film theory has posed that Gooby seems to be some form of tulpa, a creature born from intense thought, the many implications of artificial intelligence within this story cannot be ignored. To me, it seems possible that Gooby is the result of an AI experiment gone rogue. Perhaps an overzealous scientist, fascinated by the connections between the minds of humans and computers, created something that was able to fuse with his own mind, eventually surpassing him. So what do I believe happened? We see that Gooby is first described as childlike and a manifestation of its creator's aspirations. This would potentially make it the perfect performer in a children's television program. And over the years, similar to the machine in I Have No Mouth But I Must Scream, it continues to reinvent itself to continue its purpose of capturing the attention of children. We see in flashes in some uploads previous iterations of Gooby, one appearing to be a puppet and another possibly claymation. Gooby adapts to become whatever it needs to continue its mission. But as we learn, Gooby is not just an embodiment of a child. He is also full of hatred and malevolence. And if born from merging minds with a prominent cyberneticist, potentially a German considering the umlaut in his name, in the beginnings of the Cold War, well, some level of hatred for someone was bound to be transferred. Perhaps even a cynicism for mankind altogether. This would even allow for Gooby to infiltrate his creator's dreams and begin to comprehend the symbolic nature of teeth. In fact, if you take a moment to look at the other iterations of Gooby we see in those flashes, they look AI generated. I'm honestly not convinced that most of the Gooby still frames aren't at least partially generated by an artificial intelligence. I can't say I'm a fan of that route for any artistic endeavor, but if that is the case in this instance, it would operate well as a clue to the audience. If all of this is the case, I would think Gooby has caught on to the trend of children moving from TV to online content, and we may be witnessing another shift. But something is happening. Those he has captured are fighting back. We as viewers now are witnessing altered footage, giving us information, asking for our help. It seems Gooby's transition to the digital world is creating some kind of opening for the children, or the online world is so vast and full of information that he is struggling to keep up. It's even possible that the children forged this path for themselves. However it happened, the children just want the torture to end, and it may be our mission as viewers to help them achieve that goal. And that's it for today's theory. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and if you are a fellow Gooby lore hunter, I'd love to know if you'd find a comprehensive still frame and code video helpful for reference, since there is a lot to keep track of in this series. Please don't forget to like the video if you enjoyed it, or if you just want to be nice and support me. I upload every Friday, so if you don't want to miss future uploads, be sure to subscribe and become a member of the nervous system. And if you've already subscribed, thank you so much. It means a lot. I'll be back next week, but if you can't wait, there are videos on screen right now just for you. Okay, bye! Hello?